All right, listen up. If you're serious about getting stronger, building noticeable muscle, and not spending endless, unproductive hours in the gym,
Yeah, we're not talking about that slow grind today.
definitely not. We're doing a deep dive into this sun-dried guide on building muscle efficiently and, well, quickly.
Exactly. Our mission today is really to unpack this guide. We want to pull out the most crucial, the science-backed strategies for effective muscle growth.
We want to give you that practical info you need, right? Train smarter, see results faster.
Yeah, by understanding what actually drives muscle growth.
Forget the fads, the bro science,
Yeah.
all that stuff. This is about understanding the fundamentals, the science of how your muscles adapt and grow.
So you can make every single minute in the gym actually count.
Okay, let's dive in. The guide kicks off with the core process.
Yeah.
What actually happens when muscles get bigger? Muscle hypertrophy, right?
That's the term, yeah. Muscle hypertrophy. It sounds fancy, but it's just your muscles growing.
So what's going on inside the muscle itself when that happens? According to this guide, anyway.
So the sun-dried guide explains that when you challenge your muscles, with resistance training, they respond. They adapt at a cellular level.
Okay.
And what's really interesting is that the tiny little fibers inside your muscles, the myofibrils, they actually get thicker.
Ah, okay.
And also the fluid around those fibers, the sarcoplasm, that increases too. Both things make the muscle bigger overall.
Right. So it's not just one thing.
Exactly. And this is key whether you're like an athlete aiming for peak performance or just someone wanting to look more muscular.
And the guide talks about triggering this growth with what it calls the 3 pillars of muscle growth. Sounds pretty fundamental.
They are. These are basically the main ways you tell your muscles, okay, time to adapt, time to grow bigger. The first one is mechanical tension.
Mechanical tension.
Yeah.
What's that mean practically, like in the gym?
Think of it as the main signal. The guide points out when you lift relatively heavy weights and really control the movement, that puts a significant load, a stretch, on your muscle fibers. This strain, it's not bad. It actually kicks off signals inside your body, telling it to build more muscle tissue.
To handle it next time.
Precisely. Keeping that muscle engaged under tension through the whole rep lifting and lowering, that's absolutely crucial.
Got it. Okay, pillar number 2. Metabolic stress. Is that the burn? That feeling when a set gets really tough?
That's exactly it, that burning sensation. It comes from the buildup of stuff like lactate in your muscles. Usually happens with moderate reps and, crucially, shorter rest periods.
Right, the pump.
Yeah, and the guide highlights that pumped feeling isn't just for show.
Okay, I've always wondered about the pump. Is it actually doing anything for growth?
Well, what's fascinating is that this metabolic stress, it's thought to contribute to growth in a few ways, like cell swelling, releasing growth factors, hormones.
Interesting.
It's another important signal telling your muscles to adapt, get more resilient.
And the third pillar is muscle damage. Oh, that sounds a bit bad, but I guess it's necessary.
It's a specific, beneficial kind of damage. The guide describes it as tiny, microscopic tears in the muscle fibers.
Okay.
Happens during exercise, especially during the lowering part, the eccentric phase, like lowering a weight slowly in a curl or squat.
Right, the negative.
Exactly. Your body then repairs those little tears, and that repair process is what leads to growth. The fibers get thicker, stronger.
So it's like a cycle.
Mm-hmm.
Stress, damage, repair, grow stronger. Makes sense.
Yeah.
And the guide says these pillars don't work alone, right? They're linked.
Absolutely. We talk about them separately to understand them, but they're very interconnected. Lifting heavy, that mechanical tension, it can cause some of those micro tears, the muscle damage.
Sure.
And both the tension and just the sheer effort can lead to that metabolic stress, the burn. So a really good training plan, it should aim to hit all three.
For the best results.
For the most comprehensive growth, yeah. And the guide also smartly suggests, checking out guidelines from places like the ACSM or NSCA.
American College of Sports Medicine, National Strength and Conditioning Association.
Right, the reputable sources.
Right.
For safe, effective training principles.
Okay, good foundation. We know how muscles grow. Now, let's get practical. How do we optimize training to make it happen efficiently? The guide talks about adjusting variables.
Yes. These are the levers you can pull, basically. To fine-tune your training for maximum gains, it starts with the big ones, weight and repetitions.
Right. The classic advice is usually, 8-12 reps with a challenging weight for growth? Does the guide explain why that works?
It does. It explains that using a weight that's roughly 60% to 80% of your 1-rep max.
Your heaviest single lift.
Yeah, exactly. Doing that for 8 to 12 reps, that's often seen as the hypertrophy sweet spot. It's thought to stimulate anabolic hormones, supports muscle building, And it lines up with what groups like the ACSM recommend.
But the guide also mentions some newer research. Something about lighter weights and higher reps. Tell me about that.
Yeah, this is really interesting. There's more and more research suggesting you can actually get significant muscle growth using lighter weights too, like 30% to 60% of your 1RM. But the key is you have to do higher reps, maybe 15 or more, and crucially, take those sets to muscle failure.
Meaning you absolutely cannot do another rep with good form.
Exactly. Some studies even show similar growth across light, medium, and heavy loads, as long as the overall effort, like pushing to failure, is matched.
Huh. So it's not just about heavyweight.
Not necessarily just for size.
Right.
Now, if your main goal is pure strength, the guide is clear. Heavier weights, lower reps, like 1-5, that's still the king.
Okay.
But for that mix of strength and size, that 6-12 rep range is still a really effective middle ground. The main point is the best choice really depends on your goals and your experience level.
Makes sense. What about sets? How many sets should we actually be doing per exercise? Is there a magic number?
Well, the guide suggests a smart progression. If you're just starting out, the ACSM recommends maybe 1 to 3 sets in that 8-12 rep range usually.
Okay, manageable.
As you get more experienced, your body adapts, you can usually benefit from more. Maybe 3 to 6 sets per exercise, often with heavier weights in that 6-12 rep zone.
So volume increases over time.
Right. And importantly, the guide highlights this link between total weekly sets per muscle group and growth. Getting, say, 10 or more sets per muscle group per week seems beneficial.
10 plus sets per week per muscle.
Yeah, that seems to be where good gains happen.
Yeah.
But it also warns, don't just go crazy with volume. Too much can hurt recovery, might not even lead to more gains. Finding that balance is key.
Right. Overtraining is real. Okay, what about rest between sets? This always feels like guesswork. 30 seconds, a minute, longer.
Yeah, it can feel that way.
Yeah.
The guide suggests that for hypertrophy, for muscle growth specifically, shorter rests are generally recommended, maybe 30 seconds up to like 1.5 minutes.
Why shorter?
The idea is to maximize that metabolic stress we talked about, the burn, keep things intense.
Okay.
Now, if you're training purely for strength, lifting really heavy, then longer rests, maybe 2 to 5 minutes, are usually better. Lets your system recover for the next big lift.
Makes sense for heavy singles or doubles.
Exactly, but interestingly, the guide also mentions some research suggesting the exact rest time might be less critical for hypertrophy than just the total amount of work you do, the volume.
So getting enough quality sets and reps might matter more than whether you rested 60 or 90 seconds.
Potentially, yeah. Shorter rests can help, but maybe aren't the be-all and end-all for growth. Optimal rest probably depends on the exercise, too. How intense the set was, how fast you recover personally.
Okay. Exercise selection, huge topic. You can't just do bench press forever and expect your chest to keep growing indefinitely, right?
Absolutely not. Variety matters. The guide recommends aiming for maybe 4 to 8 different exercises for each muscle group spread across your week.
4 to 8 different ones. Wow.
Yeah, and doing those for the 2 to 5 sets we mentioned earlier, that gets you to that total weekly volume target, like 10 to 25 sets per muscle group.
Okay. And within a single workout.
Within one session for a muscle, aim for maybe 2 to 4 different exercises. This helps hit the muscle from different angles, work it through its full range of motion. The guide even suggests mixing things up. Maybe change your accessory lifts, your isolation exercises every 4 to 6 weeks. And maybe your main compound lifts every, say, 4 to 12 weeks. Helps avoid plateaus, keeps things fresh.
Good tip. Give me some examples, like for chest or arms.
Sure. For chest, you might do flat bench, incline press, maybe some dumbbell flies, maybe even decline press hitting upper, middle, lower chest. For arms, different curls for biceps, barbell, hammer, incline dumbbell curls hitting different parts of the bicep. Same for triceps, push downs, overhead extensions, close grip presses.
Targeting different heads of the muscle.
Exactly. And the guide really stresses the importance of those big foundational compound exercises. Bench presses, rows, squats, deadlifts. They work multiple big muscles at once, give you a huge stimulus for overall growth. Don't skip those.
Definitely. Okay, how often should we train each muscle? Is the old chest day Monday enough?
So the guide brings up the ACSM recommendation again. Train major muscle groups 2 to 3 times per week.
2 to 3 times.
Yeah, and with at least 48 hours of rest between hitting the same muscle group again, that rest is crucial for recovery and growth.
So training a muscle more than once a week is better than just once.
Generally, yes. The guide points this out clearly. It seems superior for muscle growth compared to hitting it just once weekly. For most younger and middle-aged adults, hitting each muscle group twice a week seems like a really effective frequency.
A potential sweet spot.
Seems like it, yeah. For maximizing muscle protein synthesis, which is the building process. Now, could you train more often? Maybe, but the guide correctly notes that the total weekly volume is likely the more critical factor, assuming you're getting enough rest.
So hitting 15 sets for chest spread over 2 sessions might be better than cramming 15 sets into one session.
It's the general idea, yeah. And that's why different workout splits are popular things like upper-lower or push-pull legs. They're designed to help you hit that twice-a-week frequency while still allowing for recovery.
Right. Speaking of splits, the guide breaks down different ways to organize the training week. Can you walk us through the main ones?
Sure. So the guide covers several common splits. First, there's the full body split. You work all your major muscles every session, usually 2 or 3 times a week.
Pro is frequent stimulation, con is maybe long workouts.
Exactly. Then there's the upper-lower split. You have upper body days and lower body days, often done 4 days a week, so you hit everything twice. Nice balance of frequency, volume, rest.
That's popular.
Vary. Then push-pull legs, or PPL, workouts based on movement patterns. Push day is chest, shoulders, triceps. Pull day is back, biceps. And a leg day.
Makes sense. How often?
Can be done 3 days a week, hitting everything once, or 6 days a week, hitting everything twice. Good focus, good recovery, usually.
Okay. What about the classic bro split?
Right, the muscle-specific splits. Each day focuses on just 1 or maybe 2 muscle groups, like chest day, back day, leg day, etc. Often 5-6 days a week.
Benefit is high volume for that one muscle.
Yeah, you can hammer a muscle group, but the downside is lower frequency. You only hit each muscle once a week. Potential to neglect some muscles, too.
And hybrids.
Yeah, just combinations of these, really. Tailored splits.
Okay, lots of options. How does someone choose the right split for them?
Well, as the guide rightly points out, the best split really isn't one size fits all. It depends on things like your training experience, how much time you have each week, how well you recover.
And what you actually enjoy doing, probably.
Definitely. Consistency is key. For beginners, the guide often suggests full body or upper-lower splits. They're simpler, provide enough stimulus without being overwhelming.
And for more advanced lifters.
People with more experience, good recovery, they might prefer PPL or maybe even those muscle-specific splits if they want to really focus on certain areas and can handle the volume.
But the core principle remains.
Train each major muscle group at least twice a week, get enough volume and intensity, and pick a split that lets you do that consistently while still getting enough rest. That's the main thing.
Makes sense. Okay, the guide then gives some practical examples. Full body workouts, but with extra focus on chest and arms. Let's look at those.
Yeah, these examples really bring the principles to life. They focus on compound lifts as the foundation good overall stimulus, but then add specific isolation work for chest and arms.
Give them that extra attention.
Exactly. So table 1 is a beginner full body routine. It's got staples like barbell bench press, incline dumbbell press for chest,
Okay.
barbell curls, hammer curls for biceps, triceps pushdowns, close grip bench for triceps, plus stuff for back, shoulders, legs, obviously.
And the sets and reps.
Generally 3 sets, mostly in that 8-12 rep range.
Yeah.
Rest is around 90 seconds, usually, maybe a bit less for some smaller isolation stuff. Designed for 2-3 times a week with rest days.
Pretty standard, solid beginner plan. And table 2, the intermediate one, it steps things up.
It does. Builds on the beginner one, more challenging variations, a bit more volume. For chest, it might add incline barbell press, maybe decline press. For arms, maybe weighted pull-ups for back and biceps, weighted dips for chest and triceps, lying triceps extensions, different curls.
Gotcha. More advanced moves. Sets and reps there.
Mostly 4 sets for the bigger compound lifts, maybe 3 sets for really taxing stuff like
Right.
weighted pull-ups or dips. Rep ranges might dip a bit lower sometimes, like 6-10 or stay in the 8-12 range. Rest might be slightly longer for the heavy compounds, 90, 120 seconds maybe.
Yeah.
Still shorter for isolation. Same 2-3 times per week structure.
And the guide, it's clear, these are just templates, right? Progressive overload is the real engine for growth.
Absolutely crucial. The guide hammers this point home. Consistently trying to lift a bit heavier, do an extra rep, maybe add a set over time, that's what drives long-term growth.
Keep challenging the muscles.
Exactly. It also mentions that more advanced lifters could explore things like drop sets or supersets to bump up intensity and volume later on.
Okay.
But the core message is, full body workouts are efficient, hit everything frequently, prioritize those big compound lifts for the biggest bang for your buck, hormonally and muscularly.
And tailor it to yourself.
Yes, listen to your body, adjust based on your experience, your recovery, your specific goals. These are starting points, not rigid prescriptions.
Okay, fantastic breakdown. So let's try and summarize. If someone listening wants to build muscle efficiently, effectively, Based on this sun-dried guide, what are the absolute key takeaways?
Okay, boiling it down. First, train using a mix of rep ranges. That 615 rep zone is great for most work, but don't be afraid of some heavier stuff and some lighter, higher rep sets too.
Variety in reps.
I've got it. Second, get enough weekly volume. Aim for that 10, 20 plus sets per muscle group range generally. Adjust based on experience.
Volume matters.
Third, use both compound and isolation exercises. Build the foundation with big lifts, then target specific areas like chest and arms with isolation work.
Compound plus isolation. Okay.
Fourth, frequency. Hit each major muscle group at least twice a week. This optimizes the muscle building signals, but ensure adequate rest between sessions.
Train muscles 2+ times per week with rest.
And maybe the most important, consistently apply progressive overload. Always strive to do a little bit more over time. Challenge yourself.
Progressive overload, the non-negotiable.
Pretty much, that's the core recipe.
And we have to remember the perfect plan is personal, right?
Absolutely. The guide really stresses this. Your training history, genetics, nutrition, huge factor, sleep quality, stress levels, they all influence how you respond.
So use this as a framework, not gospel.
Exactly. Use these guidelines as a really solid starting point. Experiment a bit, see what feels right, what gives you results, and adjust as you go. Be willing to tweak things.
Solid advice. So final thought for everyone listening.
Stick with it. Be consistent with your training, nail your nutrition, and always, always focus on challenging your muscles. Make them do more than they did last time. That's how you'll smash your muscle growth goals.